Welcome to Mike's Mac Shack. Today we're going to show you how I installed the Opencore Legacy Patcher on a 2012 Mac Mini with a Core i5. Make sure you check the description for the website that'll walk you through this entire process. But the first thing we need to do is we need to download the actual software to do the actual patch. So I'm doing all of this on a 2012 Mac Mini. I'm doing this on the computer I'm going to actually run Monterey on. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to download a copy of Monterey. So when you go through the website will walk you through every step that you need to do. But if you don't want to particularly watch everything on the website, you can just follow this video. Now I will warn you, this will take over 2 hours to do, so make sure you leave yourself enough time. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to query Apple servers and actually download the copy of macOS Monterey. So I installed the latest non-beta version that was available. Now this is a 12.2 gig file. This will take a long time, so make sure that you have something to do in the process. So let's download. So once we have the file downloaded, now we need to actually make the USB. So what you're going to do is you're going to click Flash Installer, select the USB drive, and it's going to erase whatever is on that drive. So make sure that you don't have anything on there you want to save. And let's create the USB. So now that we have the installer and we created the USB drive, now we need to build and install Opencore onto the actual USB drive. So you're going to choose to build the Opencore, and then you're going to install it onto the USB drive, not your hard drive. So here I'm installing it on the Cruiser Glide, which is my my USB stick, and enter your password because it needs root access. And it's going to install Opencore onto the USB, and this will allow Opencore to boot this computer with Monterey to be able to install it. Otherwise, you just get a strikeout upon boot because this computer is not officially supported. So, at this point in time, after you build it, and this only takes a couple of seconds to do, we're going to copy the Opencore file onto the USB stick. Now don't worry, it won't affect the installer, but we will need to use it after we install Monterey on the computer. So make sure that you have it copied onto your USB drive, because otherwise you'll have to fight with unaccelerated video to try to download it again. So at this point we're going to restart, and upon restarting we're going to hold the Option key down to bring up the macOS boot picker. This will allow us to choose the Opencore USB stick to boot from. So what we have to do is we have to choose the EFI boot with the picture of the portable hard drive, which is on the far right here. That's the one you want to install, not install macOS. We want the EFI boot, then you want to install macOS. If you don't choose the EFI boot, then it will give you a strikeout because Monterey doesn't officially work on this Mac. So at this point in time, after it boots up here, this is just booting into the actual installer, which is loading macOS, but it's just since booting into the installer. So we need to do some cleanup on this machine. So this machine at the moment is running Mojave, and I did not make the hard drive APFS. I just used Mac OS Extended, because truthfully I wasn't actually planning on OpenCoreing this computer initially. If I knew I was going to OpenCore it, I would have chosen APFS when I installed Mojave. So the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to erase this hard drive, and we're going to have to reinitialize it as an APFS volume. Monterey will not boot off of anything else but APFS. So once the installer loads here, and this does take some time because it's loading off of USB 2.0, we'll get to the macOS recovery and install screen. So we're going to go into disk utility, and we're just going to totally whack this hard drive. So there's nothing on this hard drive but a macOS install, so there's nothing to save. Make sure if you have anything you want to save on this on your drive that you have it backed up before you do this, because you'll lose everything. So I recommend backing anything up that you want to keep before you even think about doing the Opencore install, for the simple fact that you never know if you may have to erase. So after a couple seconds here, this SSD will erase, and it will be an APFS volume. And then after this, it's just a simple fact of going in and actually doing the install for Opencore. Now, when you start to when it's installing, it will reboot several times. Don't panic, just leave it alone. The Opencore software is smart, and it knows that once it reboots so far through the install that it needs to reboot into the installer, and it will keep continuing. It will look like a Mac OS loading screen, except it'll have a time on the bottom. This takes the better part of an hour or more, depending on the speed of your machine. So my suggestion is go out, have dinner, go shopping, whatever. Just leave it go. And then when you come back, you'll be ready to set up your Mac the way you want. So at this point in time, we're just going to let it install. So it'll boot one time and then it'll go back and it'll reset itself, and then we can get to the actual first boot. You know it's going to be the first boot when the boot picker comes up and it actually chooses your hard drive, not the installer to boot from. So at that point you know that it's done installing. The Opencore system is very smart. It knows how many times to reboot and everything to finish the installer properly, because it has to inject files and trickeries and other things. I don't exactly know how it works. I insist it's still witchcraft, but it works nonetheless. So here we are having the first boot, and of course this takes, everybody knows the first boot on a Mac takes a while. So then we're finally greeted with the introduction, which is where you choose all your options. You can configure this as you like. I just kind of skated through this whole thing as best I could, for the simple fact that at this point, since Opencore is not installed on your hard drive, there is no graphics acceleration, so the mouse pointer is jerky, and video, it looks really bad, and it's really kind of a pain to sit there and move your mouse 3 inches and have your mouse not following you. So I'm going to speed this part up here to just a couple of seconds, because this is stuff where you can just choose your own options, and then we'll come back when we actually have all of the configuration done and we actually get to the Finder. So now we're finally at the Finder after all that trudging through setting everything up. So at this point we need to actually install Opencore on the hard drive. So we're going to go into our USB drive and we're going to open up the Opencore Patcher. And what we're going to do is we're going to build and install Opencore. And we're going to build it, and we're building it for the computer that we're using it on. And then we're going to go back and we're going to actually, and I actually did it twice here by accident, and then we're going to install it. And we're going to choose the hard drive that we're installing it on, which is a SanDisk SSD. And of course you have to enter your password because it needs root access. And it's going to actually install all the necessary drivers and software that this machine needs to run properly. Which mainly is the Intel 4000 graphics drivers to give you hardware acceleration. The Intel 4000 is metal compatible, so we don't have to worry about faking metal. So, but we do need graphics acceleration because it's practically unusable without it. And at this point, we're going to restart, and after you click restart, pull your USB drive out, and you'll see down in the little corner that I actually hold mine up to say, hey, you know, I'm not booting off of this now. And we're going to let it restart itself. And so when the boot picker comes up, it should only have the hard drive to boot from. And this machine's quite slow when it comes to actually restarting, so Opencore will add time from power on to the time you get the boot picker. So make sure you're aware of that and don't freak out. It will add about another 10-15 seconds. So here we got the boot picker, and the only thing that showed up was our hard drive. And now we're going to boot. And you'll see it boots fairly quickly after the initial first boot, of course. And it'll get to the login screen, and then we can log in. We can get to the Finder. We'll eventually get to the Finder. There we go. Now it's cruising along. So we're going to log in here. And our machine is now officially running MacOS Mojave off of our internal SSD. So, and you see here, I can bring up that should prove to you that I am actually running this on a late 2012 Mac Mini with a Core i5 processor and 8 gigs of RAM and a 120 gig SSD. So, it's not the fastest experience in the world, but it's actually smoother than I thought it would be. So, if you want to try it for yourself, check out the links in the description below. And I wish you the best of luck modifying your Mac to run OS Monterey.